So you would be okay with the Supreme Court leaving the question of interracial marriage to the states?
Yes, I think that that's something that if you're not wanting the Supreme Court to weigh in on issues like that, you're not going to be able to have your cake and eat it too. I think that's hypocritical.
About Griswold versus Connecticut.
Well, you can list a whole host of issues. When it comes down to whatever they are, I'm going to say that they're not going to all make you happy within a given state, but that we're better off having states manifest their points of view rather than homogenizing it across the country as Roe versus Wade did.
There's Indiana Senator Mike Braun. He was talking to some reporters on a Zoom call, and he was answering questions about some Supreme Court decisions, specifically about civil rights things. That one, then, he was mentioning was interracial marriage, and they also brought up a couple's right to contraception and their privacy when it comes to that. But that isn't even where it started. He just went down those roads and doesn't matter about any of those. Let's look at some of the details of how this began, because that one might not surprise you. Braun initially limited his claim about this whole thing to the national right to abortion, which was established, of course, in 1973 by the Roe versus Wade decision. And he hopes the current, more conservative Supreme Court will overturn this in the coming months when it rules on Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization, as we know most Republicans are. But when he was asked by the Times, Braun admitted that there were many Supreme Court decisions he believes improperly established federal rights that would be better handled on a state-by-state basis, which included, as they mentioned, Loving versus Virginia, and that legalized interracial marriage, and Griswold, Connecticut, and that established a right to privacy concerning contraception use. So specifically concerning this interracial marriage line, Braun rejected the reasoning of a unanimous Supreme Court that the freedom to marry is a fundamental constitutional right, and states depriving Americans of it on an arbitrary basis, such as race, is unconstitutional. Now, he did acknowledge that leaving such a question to states is likely to lead to situations where a marriage may be recognized in one state and not in another, but he shrugged it off as the beauty of the system, because that's a beautiful situation to have all those confusions and back and forths go. Now, after he had some pushback from this, as you can imagine, maybe we could play like a bingo card. Maybe you could say, Braun says, I was just joking. That was a fun moment for me. He didn't even go there. He can't say he was hacked because he didn't tweet it. Instead, he went here. Braun later walked back his comments by claiming that he misunderstood the question, despite the question being asked multiple times in different ways to ensure that Braun meant and understood what he said concerning interracial marriage. And this is what he said in that. Let me be clear on that issue. There's no question the Constitution prohibits discrimination of any kind based on race. That is not something that is even up for debate. And I condemn racism in any form, in all levels, and by any states, entities, or individuals, is what Braun said. So Michael, I just wanna go through that last line when he's talking about, he misunderstood the question, but then it also went to, by the way, it's not up for debate. I condemn racism in any forms. He hasn't talked yet about what he really believes, because he doesn't want to bring that up again, because he did say what he actually believes. It's a bit of a dodge around the actual pushback or backpedal.
And he was caught. I mean, clearly he wasn't ready for those types of questions. And in the middle of a Supreme Court nomination, if you go on and do a Zoom with reporters, you've got to be a little better than Mike Braun was. And just sort of, a lot of people criticize Joe Manchin for good reason. A lot of Democrats think that he should be primaried, that he should be. But this is what happens. Mike Braun beat one of the very most moderate, next to Manchin, senators on the Democratic side, and Joe Donnelly. And everyone was thinking, well, it might be good to primary Donnelly and to get a better progressive in there. This is what happens when you do that, right? You get Joe Donnelly losing to Mike Braun, and this kind of scope of reasoning coming from somebody like Mike Braun. Now, it doesn't happen exactly that way, and Joe Donnelly and Joe Manchin were not at all similar in terms of what they've done recently, but this is a good example of how that works. Now, we're talking about Loving versus Virginia, right? We're talking about interracial marriage. 97% of Americans have zero problem with that. Do you know how hard it is to get 97% of Americans to agree on something? And the Republican Party is talking about voting rights, and they're talking about Loving versus Virginia, and they're talking about these issues of race that most of America has just moved beyond. And so you sort of see them wallowing in the last desperate gasps of issues that were wedge issues at a time, which we have all moved thankfully passed. Civil rights movement helped us to do it at first, and now just the sort of the passage of time, people can't believe that there was even a case about it. 97% of Americans. So Mike Braun is, he's talking about yesterday's stories. He did get caught not being ready for that answer, and the answer he gave was an answer that is inadequate, certainly for somebody in the Senate in 2022 when he's talking about states' rights and interracial marriage. I mean, it's an absurd thing.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder to what degree they're trying to make sure they hold on to this loyalty pledges that many of them have for Donald Trump, and they think they've regressed the party. He has regressed the party back enough, or at least the voting bloc, to come out and openly say the things that they were kind of afraid to say. So now he's like, wait a second, I have to go with the states' rights lines no matter what they ask me, and ends up looking like this. And maybe the belief system just is that, because he didn't disavow his statements saying that. I mean, I can only believe what Braun is telling us.
Right. And just to defend Braun, but what I'm saying, a lot of these people take it from the constitutional standpoint. I'm not a lawyer, and there may be ways that you look at these issues in legal ways, but no lawyers I know and care about and are interested in support this kind of thinking on a case like Loving or a case like Griswold.
Well, yeah, no lawyers, and then I'm not sure if he has any kind of a legal background, but maybe he should think about it every once in a while before he jumps in. It seems like it's way too easy for you to be unprepared for that. If you actually care about citizens outside of the ones that you're trying to rile up and support you.